Hello, I want to talk about Chapter 5 today. First, a couple administrative issues to deal with. As we move forward, I'm going to spend a little less time on the chapters. I want to spend more time talking to you about the philosophical aspects, the attitude of money issues, and just simply put it on you to be reading the chapter and learning the materials and watching the videos that I assign to you, rather than me spending time recapping it. So that's on you. Secondly, I don't know how you guys are feeling. I can't get a sense whether you're feeling like this course, I'm throwing a lot at you every day, whether you're really burdened with work. But I just want to point out, if we were in class, we would be spending 3 hours a day in the classroom, and then there'd be homework after that. I suspect most of you probably aren't spending 3 hours, or at least not more than 3 hours a day on this class. So in reality, this is a piece of cake, so enjoy it. Okay, Chapter 5 talks about credit, the advantages and disadvantages. Excuse me. First off, the advantages, really one big advantage. It allows you to have something now, even though you don't have the money to buy it now. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Disadvantages, first off, cost. Anytime you borrow money, you are paying interest, and you are adding cost to the item significantly. And the longer the loan, the more you're adding cost to the item. So you're paying more for an item to have it now, rather than saving up the money and waiting until you can buy it, and then simply paying the price, not price plus interest. Next topic, you're locking in payments. I've talked about, I hate to see people have fixed costs every month. So you get your paycheck home, you pay your rent, you buy your groceries, and now you've got to make your house, your car payment, your credit card payment. You're eating away at that discretionary income that you have left to save or to have fun with. So you're locking yourself into costs. Next one, and you've heard this, there's a line in the Bible, borrower is slave to the lender. I had to Google it, it's from Proverbs. But what that means is when you owe somebody money, you always have somebody with control over you. You have an obligation that you always have to meet. And if you don't meet that obligation, your ass is in the sling, right? You don't want to live that way. Lastly, I would just say that when you don't have debt, when you don't have those obligations, there is just a tremendous amount of freedom knowing you don't owe anybody. What you have is yours. It belongs to you. You sleep very well at night when you get out from under that. Now let's go back to the advantages, the advantage of having something now that you don't have the money to do. I'm going to tell you, I only want to see you use debt for assets that are very long-term in nature. For example, a house. If you borrow money now and buy a house, you can pay off that mortgage in 15 years or 30 years, and your house still has substantial value. Or you can borrow money and you can resell the house in 10 years, pay off the mortgage, and that asset still has a lot of value because, a house lasts 100 years or 150 years. So relatively speaking, a 15-year, 30-year mortgage compared to the life of the asset is reasonable. Another example is education. You're going into debt. Most of you have student debt. You're going into debt for education. But how long is that asset going to last you? How long is that degree going to benefit you? Decades. So you'll have ample time to pay off that student debt and still benefit from the education, from the rewards of that. Other things that you buy with debt, cars. How long does a car last? 5 years, 7 years, maybe 10. Car loans a lot of times now are 6, 7 years long. By the time you pay off the car isn't worth diddly. So here's a situation where you're entering a debt contract that is almost equal to the life of the asset. That's not a good equation. And then other things you might borrow money for, like, you might use a credit card to go buy some clothes. How long did the clothes last? Those are not a long-term asset. So I don't want to see you using debt for anything that is not a long-term asset. Basically, mortgage and education. Beyond that, I really hope that you can stay out of debt. Now, a car, in most cases, depending on where you live, is a necessity, right? If you have a job, you have to have a car to get from point A to point B, so that you could make a case that I've got to buy that car now, even though I don't have the money. Okay, there are cases of that. But I'm also going to tell you, you can go buy a car that will get you from point A to point B for $3,000 or $5,000. It may not be much to look at, but it will get you from point A to point B. And that's all you want to do now, so that you can get that debt paid off. And then you can start saving up to buy the car that you want. I'll talk more about that when we get to the section about auto purchasing. Okay, book talks about open-end credit and closed-end credit. Closed-end credit means I'm going to go out and borrow $150,000 to buy a house. It is a set amount that's closed. Open-end is a revolving line of credit. So I have a credit card that gives me an $8,000 credit limit. I can spend or borrow any amount on that credit card from $0 to $8,000. That's open-ended. The book talks about applying for credit and the 5 C's of credit worthiness that a lender looks at. I'm not going to talk about it. I simply expect you guys to know those. I want you to understand the credit reporting bureaus and how they work, and what goes into the FICO score calculation. The book talks about those some. I also have some videos that you're going to watch that will go into those into more detail. Live it, learn it, be it. It's important stuff. Now let's go into the topic of using credit cards. And do you need a credit history? Do you need to build a FICO score? First off, chapter talks about credit cards and debit cards. I'm going to tell you, use your debit card wherever possible, right? Because that is spending money that you have rather than using debt. Do you need a credit card? You're going to watch a Dave Ramsey video and he's going to tell you absolutely not. You don't need a credit score at all. I think that's a little extreme. Most of you will, in the not too distant future, be interested in getting a mortgage to buy a house. And having a credit score will help facilitate that process. So I do think you want to start to build a credit score. However, I'm going to tell you it takes very little to do that. First thing, I would tell you, go get a credit card. If you have a bank, they might give you a credit card. Otherwise, they're sending applications to college students all the time. Get a credit card without an annual fee. You don't want to pay an annual fee. That's just another fixed expense. There are free credit cards out there. Check out Discover if none others. Get a free credit card. And then here's what I want you to do. I want you to use it once, pay it off in full before you incur any interest. Most of the time you have a 30-day grace period. If not, you'll have to make the payment right away. Use it, pay it off. And then maybe use it one more time and pay it off. Then take that credit card and throw it in your dresser drawer and don't even look at it again for 12 months. Okay. Part of the credit score calculation is the length of credit. So when you get that credit card and you use it, you are starting to build a credit history. And then those months where it's sitting in the dresser drawer, even though you're not using the card, you are still building credit history. All right, so that's going to start to build a credit score. Next thing I want you to do is, after 9 months have gone by, 12 months have gone by, you've shown that, yeah, I used the credit card, I paid it off, I'm good. Then you call up the credit card company and tell them you'd like them to increase your credit limit. Another part of the credit calculation is how much of your available balance have you used. And if you've used, 60% of your available credit or 80% of your available credit, that shows that wow, maybe you're kind of risky using all of that credit. So that's not very good for your score. If you've only used 20% of your available credit or 10% of your available credit, it looks better and improves your credit score. So if you, after you've used it, the credit card, the 1 or 2 initial times, if the bank then goes back and raises your credit limit, the amount that you've used relative to your available credit limit is going to be smaller, and that's going to improve your score. So now you have a credit card that's built good credit history. You will have student loan payments that you make on time. I'm going to tell you, that's all you need. That is enough to establish a credit score. And another aspect of credit score, it is not hard to get a solid credit score. What I've just told you will get you a solid credit score, everything you need to get a mortgage and to get good insurance rates. With credit scoring, if you do something bad, if you are late on a payment, or if something gets sent to collections, that hurts your credit score dramatically. So you don't really have to do anything that great to get a good credit score. You just can't do anything bad, because bad things really are an anchor to your credit score. Okay, now, as Dave Ramsey will talk about, to have a great credit score means that you are a great user of debt. And we don't want you to be a great user of debt. We want you to build wealth, to build net worth. And paying interest is not a good way to build wealth. And I want to point out the assumptions that go into the FICO score are really ironic. As Dave points out, the more you use credit, the higher your credit score. And here's another example from a personal standpoint. I was able to pay off my home mortgage some time ago. So my credit score is going down now because I don't have a mortgage, because I have fewer types of credit that I'm using. So does that make sense? My credit score is getting worse because I have the self-discipline and I have built the net worth to enable me to pay off this very substantial asset. So now it's saying I'm less worthy of a financial person, of a customer. You see the irony there? FICO score is kind of messed up. So you got to walk that line. You got to play the game to a small extent. You need to have a FICO score that's respectable, but don't worry about it beyond that. Once you get respectable, if you try to get a high credit score, then you're actually walking down the wrong road. You are using credit too much, and that's not the way to build wealth. Okay, that's it for chapter 5 for now. Talk to you later.